Hello.
I didn't leave with a plan, just a backpack and a phone with a dying battery. I hadn't packed anything properly, just stuffed some clothes in a bag and slammed the front door harder than I meant to. My mom didn't follow. She didn't call my name or ask me to stay. She just stood at the kitchen sink, her back to me, pretending to wash a dish that had been clean for 10 minutes. The fight had started the way it always did, with something small. This time it was the job I hadn't applied for. But underneath, it was the same thing it had always been. My stepdad trying to shape me into someone I wasn't, and me refusing to bend anymore. I spent that night in my car, parked behind a grocery store, half asleep in the driver's seat, my hoodie pulled over my face. The next morning, a text from my mom buzzed through at 6:03 a.m. "If you don't want to be here, text Michelle. You know she always liked you." That was it. No come home. No apology. Just her way of saying she couldn't take my side. But she wasn't turning her back either. I stared at the message for almost an hour before I finally typed, "Hey, my mom said I could reach out. Just need somewhere to land for a few days." Michelle replied within 3 minutes. "Of course. Guest room's yours. I'll leave the porch light on." That was 3 nights ago. Now I was standing barefoot in her hallway, listening to the soft hum of the dishwasher and the gentle creak of the house settling into its bones. Her place hadn't changed since I was 16. Same eucalyptus candles, same polished wood floors, same framed black and white photos of jazz musicians I still didn't recognize. Michelle was in the kitchen when I arrived, barefoot as usual, wearing a loose slate blue t-shirt tucked into linen pants. Her hair was in a messy twist, held up with a pencil, and her glasses were sliding a little too far down her nose as she stirred something on the stove. She looked over when she heard the door. Her smile didn't change, not even when she saw the exhaustion in my eyes. "You hungry?" she asked, not pressing. I just nodded. She handed me a bowl and a spoon and let me eat in silence. That was the thing about Michelle. She never rushed you, never filled silences unless they needed it. Her voice was soft, her presence light, and her house smelled like vanilla and warm fabric softener. The guest room was small but clean. A little bookshelf, a lamp with warm light, a bed made with care. I remember sitting on the edge of it that first night, still wearing my jacket, and thinking, she didn't ask why I left. She still hasn't. By the third evening, we'd settled into a rhythm. She worked from home during the day, took long calls in her office, then disappeared into the kitchen around 6. I helped her with dishes, reorganized her spice rack, replaced a bulb in the hallway that had been flickering for weeks. Small things that made me feel useful. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the fan casting soft shadows that moved like ghosts across the walls. The guest room was next to hers, and even though the walls were thick, I could hear the quiet murmur of jazz coming from her record player. I imagined her reading with her glasses low on her nose, feet tucked beneath her, a half glass of red wine forgotten on the nightstand. Then something fell, a thud, maybe a book hitting the floor, and a second later, her voice floated through the hallway. "Hey, can you come here for a sec?" I froze for a moment, halfway under the blanket. Her tone wasn't urgent, just tired, familiar. I pushed the covers off and padded out into the hall. Her door was open. The lamp inside was dim, casting a soft amber glow over the room. Michelle stood near the full-length mirror, her back to me. She wore a dark green dress I hadn't seen before, simple but elegant, with a low-cut back that revealed the smooth curve of her shoulders and the top of her spine. Her hair was still pinned up, a few strands falling loose around her neck. She didn't turn when I stepped inside. "I was trying this on for an event next week," she said, her voice calm, casual. "I think the zipper's stuck." I stood frozen in the doorway, unsure if I heard her right. Then she glanced at me over her shoulder, one eyebrow raised. "Can you help me unzip this?" My mouth went dry. I nodded, though I wasn't sure she saw. She turned slightly, just enough to expose the line of the zipper down her back. My feet moved on their own, slow and unsure, until I stood behind her. I reached for the small metal pull tab, my fingers brushing her skin where the dress dipped low. She didn't move. I tugged gently. The zipper slid an inch, then two. Her skin was warm. I hesitated, the sound of the zipper loud in the silence between us. The dress loosened slightly at the top. I caught the faint scent of her perfume, lavender and something deeper, like sandalwood. "Thanks," she said quietly, not turning. I stepped back immediately. I'll let you finish changing." I turned and left the room without waiting for a response, my heart thudding in my chest. Back in the guest room, I stood in the dark for a long time, unsure what had just happened, unsure what I was supposed to do with the way my hands still remembered her skin. I woke up late the next morning, groggy and uncentered. The light was already pouring through the curtains, golden and too bright. I lay still for a minute, listening to the familiar sounds of the house. Drawers opening in the kitchen, the soft thud of cabinet doors, the distant whistle of the kettle. All normal sounds, but nothing felt normal. The image of last night replayed in a quiet loop behind my eyes. Her standing in that warm, low light, the dress falling open slightly as the zipper slid down. The hush between us, the way she hadn't flinched when my fingers brushed her skin. I sat up slowly, rubbing my eyes. My hands still remembered the curve of her back, the heat of her. "You're imagining it," I told myself. She needed help with her dress. That's all. But something in her voice, something in that moment, had tilted the axis of the house. When I finally came into the kitchen, Michelle was already there, stirring something on the stove. She wore a soft charcoal sweater that slid off one shoulder and a pair of loose-fitting shorts that showed just enough leg to make looking feel like a choice. She glanced over when she heard me. "Morning." Her tone was light, smooth, like nothing unusual had happened. "Morning," I said, trying not to sound too tight. "Hope you slept okay." I nodded, stepping around the kitchen island. "Yeah, eventually." She smiled faintly. "Coffee? Please." She handed me a mug, her fingers brushing mine. This time the contact was so brief it could have been nothing. But my pulse jumped anyway. We moved around each other in easy rhythm, plates, toast, jam, the crack of eggshells. And yet I was hyper-aware of everything. The way she leaned against the counter, the way her sweater dipped when she reached for a plate, the soft pad of her bare feet on the tile. We didn't talk about last night. Instead, she asked about my old college friends if I'd kept in touch. I said not really. She said it was natural. People drifted. I said maybe that was the problem. She gave me a look I couldn't read. Later that day, I tried to keep busy. Swept the porch, tightened the loose hinge on the gate, reorganized a few shelves in the laundry room, but it didn't help. Every quiet corner of the house felt saturated with her presence. I kept catching glimpses of her through doorways. Curled on the couch reading, barefoot on the patio with a glass of water, stretching lazily by the kitchen sink. Each time, my eyes found her before I realized I was looking. That night, I offered to make dinner. She let me. We ate pasta and roasted vegetables at the kitchen island. The lights dimmed low, soft jazz playing through her old speaker. She poured us each a glass of wine, her movements unhurried. I tried to focus on the conversation, her latest gallery project, a local artist she thought was overrated, but my attention kept drifting. Every time she looked at me, I felt like she was searching for something I hadn't said yet. After we cleaned up, she made tea. Rooibos with honey. We sat on the couch just like the night I arrived. This time, though, she sat closer, not pressed against me, just nearer. Her leg brushed mine when she tucked it beneath herself, and she didn't move away. She handed me a mug and then let the silence settle in. The movie played, but I didn't register any of it. At one point, she leaned forward to reach her glass, and her hair brushed my arm. She didn't apologize, just stayed like that for a second longer than she had to. When the credits rolled, she set her mug down and looked at me. Not directly, not confrontationally, just openly. "You've been quiet today," she said softly. I gave a small shrug. "Just a lot on my mind." Her eyes didn't leave mine. "Last night didn't upset you, did it?" I felt the question land in my chest like a soft impact. "No," I said. "Just caught me off guard." She nodded slowly. "Me too." We sat in that for a moment. Not awkward, just charged. Then she stood, smoothing her hands down her sides. "I'm heading to bed," she said, voice low. "Okay." At the doorway, she paused. "Thanks again for helping." I nodded. Then she disappeared down the hall. I didn't move for a long time. The lamp beside me cast a warm circle of light on the floor, and the mug in my hands had gone cold. I set it down carefully and exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath. I went to bed eventually, lay under the sheets, staring at the ceiling, listening for her movements in the house. But everything stayed still, and my thoughts didn't. The next morning came quietly. The air in the house felt heavier, like it had absorbed everything we hadn't said the night before. I woke early, not because of an alarm, but because I couldn't stop running the memory of her voice through my head. "Last night didn't upset you, did it?" She hadn't said it teasingly or flippantly. She'd said it with weight, like she knew exactly what it had meant for both of us. And even though we'd left it there, no lines crossed, no final glances, I knew something had shifted. When I walked into the kitchen, she was already there. Her back was to me. She was barefoot again, wearing an oversized beige sweatshirt that hung off one shoulder and barely covered her shorts. Her hair was still damp, like she just stepped out of the shower. The sunlight caught in the steam rising from her mug. "Morning," she said without turning. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. She reached for the kettle. "Coffee or tea?" "Coffee's fine." She poured a second cup and handed it to me without eye contact. I took it carefully, our fingers brushing again. But this time I didn't flinch, and neither did she. We sat at the table in silence for a while. The light filtered through the windows just right, warm, golden, still. Outside, the wind moved the branches just enough to remind me that the world was still there. "You're different," she said suddenly, still staring into her mug. I looked up. "How so?" She shrugged slightly. "Quieter, sharper, like you're paying more attention now." I didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. I was paying attention to the way she moved, to the way her fingers wrapped around the handle of the cup, to the line of her collarbone visible just above the sweatshirt. And she knew it. "Do you want to get out of the house today?" she asked eventually. I blinked. "Like, go somewhere?" "There's a flea market near the coast," she said. "I usually go alone. Thought maybe you'd want to come." I nodded. "Yeah, sure." She smiled faintly, and for a second, it felt normal again. But it wasn't. We took her car. She drove with one hand on the wheel, sunglasses on, music playing low. The wind moved through the open window and swept through her hair. I watched her profile out of the corner of my eye, the slight upturn of her nose, the curve of her lips as she hummed along. We didn't say much on the way. At the market, she walked beside me with easy confidence. She wore a loose linen blouse that shifted in the breeze and a pair of sunglasses that made her look just detached enough to feel untouchable. People looked at her. I noticed, and she noticed me noticing. She bought an old ceramic bowl, a second-hand book of poetry, and a bundle of dried lavender. Carried the bag. Still strong, she teased when I hoisted it over my shoulder. Still useful, I replied. She gave me a look, half smile, half something else. By the time we got back, the sky was starting to shift into its golden hour. She kicked off her sandals by the door and dropped the bag on the counter. "I'm going to change," she said, already halfway down the hall. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the lavender. It smelled like her. When she came back, she was in a soft tank top and leggings. Hair pulled back, no makeup, barefoot again. "What?" she asked when she caught me staring. "Nothing," I said quickly. "Just thanks. For today." She nodded. "I liked having you there." She moved past me to grab a glass of water, and her shoulder brushed mine. She didn't apologize. I didn't move. After dinner, pizza, something easy, we ended up on the couch again. No movie this time. Just her playlist playing low from the speaker, soft acoustic guitar and layered vocals. She curled into her side of the couch, one leg tucked under her, the other stretched out. Her toes brushed my thigh. I didn't react. Couldn't. I was already locked into the space between us. She was scrolling through her phone, absently, when she spoke again. "Do you remember when you were 16? She asked. I glanced over. "Yeah." "Why?" "You used to sit on the porch swing and just stare at the sky for hours. Your mom thought something was wrong with you." I laughed. "I was just thinking." "That's what I told her," Michelle said, a small smile playing on her lips. I said, "He's not weird. He just sees more than we do." I looked at her. She met my gaze and didn't look away. And for a moment I felt 16 again. And also not at all. Her voice dropped just slightly. "You're still like that. You still don't say everything you're thinking." I swallowed. "Neither do you." She held my gaze for a second longer. Then she nodded. "Fair." Her foot was still resting lightly against my thigh. And neither of us moved. The next day passed like a slow wave, neither crashing nor receding, just moving. We didn't say much, but everything felt loaded. Her movements, her pauses, the way her fingers lingered just a second longer on the coffee pot when I passed behind her. The way she stood in the doorway when I was on the porch, like she was waiting to be invited. By early evening, the tension was so thick I found myself cleaning the kitchen just to stay occupied. Michelle was upstairs, her bedroom door half closed. I hadn't seen her since lunch. Then I heard her voice. "Can you come here for a second?" It floated down softly, calm, like any other time. I wiped my hands, heart already kicking in my chest. I climbed the stairs slowly, deliberately. Her bedroom door was still slightly open. I knocked once. "Yeah," she called. I pushed it open. She was standing in front of her dresser, back to me. The room was lit only by the golden light spilling through the window. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands falling near her neck. She was wearing a soft black dress, sleeveless. It hugged her form gently, falling to her knees. Her back was bare almost entirely. The zipper was undone halfway, exposing the line of her spine. Her skin looked like porcelain in the light. "I can't reach the zipper," she said, glancing at me in the mirror. Her voice was steady, her expression unreadable. My throat went dry. I stepped closer carefully. My fingers found the zipper, trembling slightly. I held it between my thumb and forefinger and pulled slowly. Her skin was warm. The zipper slid up, quiet and smooth, like a secret being folded shut. When I reached the top, I let my fingers hover just briefly at the base of her neck. She didn't move. "Thanks," she said, almost a whisper. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. I turned to leave. "Wait." Her voice was quiet, but it stopped me cold. I looked back. She had turned around. The dress now perfectly fitted, framing her figure. Her arms were at her sides, her posture relaxed. But her eyes, they were locked on mine. Not challenging, not nervous, just open. "I need to ask you something," she said. I waited. "Are you pretending this is still just a favor?" she asked. "Staying here, helping out, eating dinner, sitting on the couch." I blinked, thrown by the sudden sharpness in her tone. "No," I said truthfully. "I stopped pretending a while ago." She stepped closer. "Barely." "Me too." Her voice cracked, just slightly. Not with weakness, with weight. Like she'd been holding something in for too long. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, voice low. "I know. But it did." We stood there, neither of us moving. The air between us charged, but still. I could hear the tick of the clock on her wall, the birds outside, the sound of her breath. She took another step. Now we were almost toe to toe. "I don't want to do anything we can't undo," she said softly. I nodded. "Neither do I." She looked at me for a long time. Then finally she smiled, not wide, not playful, but real. Quiet. Sad maybe, or just careful. "Then maybe we just stop pretending for a minute," she said. And with that, she reached up, slowly, and touched the side of my face. I didn't move. Her thumb brushed my cheekbone. Her fingers curled gently behind my ear. She leaned in, not quickly, not with force, just enough to close the space between us. Her forehead rested lightly against mine. Nothing more. We stood like that, breathing the same breath. "I should go pack," I said eventually, voice barely audible. She nodded but didn't pull away. "Stay one more night." I didn't answer, but I didn't move either. That night we didn't sit on the couch. We didn't watch anything. We just stayed in our separate rooms. But something between us had finally settled. Not resolved, not labeled, just acknowledged. And somehow that was enough. For now.
Bye bye.